Well, today on the podcast we have Arian Samouie. Arian has been on the Blister Public podcast, and he is a spiritual teacher who helps people get into the quantum field of abundance to attract the life they truly want to live. Arian is mostly known through his thorough approach with shadow work, including the emotional aspects that control our behavior. Welcome back, Arian Samouie.
Thank you for having me.
Since the last time we spoke, a lot has happened. And this is particularly funny because we actually just started recording and I failed to push the record button. So let me dive straight into the question. How important is it to fail when you want to reach a level of abundance?
It's possibly one of the most important parts of it. If you think about, let's think about 2 points in reality. So there's not knowing something, and then there's knowing something. Whatever that is, it doesn't matter what it is. I want to learn how to run a business. I want to learn how to manifest. I want to learn how to be myself. I want to learn how to ride a bike. No matter what it is in reality, there is the point of not knowing that thing, and then there is the point of knowing that thing. And that space in between to not knowing and knowing is what we call learning. So you're learning how to do that thing. If you spend 100 days sucking at something to learn something, you're going to achieve it. But if you're okay with spending 100 days not knowing, that 100 days is your learning, you're going to know. In that learning stage, you are going to fail, because that's how we learn as human beings. You cannot in any way, in any reality, anywhere, ever learn something without failing. It comes hand in hand. It's the biggest thing that's actually going to get you there. Failing is to figuring out the ways that it's not done, so you can bring into your awareness how it is done. The more I fail, the more I figure out how it's not going to work. That will point me towards how it is going to work. But what we do, and what we've been taught, and what we've learned throughout our lives, is that failing is bad. Failing is wrong. It means that you cannot do it. It means that you're on the wrong path. It means that you're unable to do it. And we learn that through the experiences of our lives, whether it's the parenting style of good behavior reward, bad behavior punishment, whether it's the school system that have taught us and punish us for not getting the best grades, even though they're trying to teach us in this one specific way that makes no sense anyway. And societal beliefs of the school system and the way that we're all been brought up. So then everywhere you look, everyone follows the same kind of belief, and everyone believes that a failure would mean that you can't. Not failing is part of being able to. So everywhere in reality that you look and you feel will make you feel like failing is a reason why you can't. It means that you're bad. It means that you're not good enough. It means that you're incapable. So the mere functionality of the progression of learning, which is failing, is what we use to stop learning, to stop progressing. So this thing that's very normal, that's on the path to being able to achieve what you're trying to achieve, is the same thing you're using not to achieve what you want to achieve.
And in that, how much does the ego play a role in holding me back to actually reaching my goal?
Well, the ego will play a huge role, but it's meant to. There's an issue with that in itself, where we're in that question, we're essentially making the ego the reason why we don't. We're making the ego wrong, and that's not the case. You will struggle so much in your life if you make the ego wrong. That's just fact. The easiest path is to radically accept and befriend the ego, to understand that the ego is purely 100% constantly just trying to protect you, trying to keep you safe, trying to do what it's meant to do. And with that comes with, hey, if I keep moving forward, there's a lot of unsafety popping up. There's a lot of parts of me popping up that finds this extremely unsafe, whether it's because I have beliefs that I'm not worthy enough to be able to achieve this, whether it's because if I achieve what I'm going to achieve, I'm going to lose relationships, whether it's programming that I've had about what it means to even go down this path. The ego will flare up and play up, but it's about understanding that these are just parts of myself that are trying to protect me, and going towards that understanding. Well, what is it that you're trying to protect me from? What are the experiences that I've had in my past, or the programmings or the teachings that I've had, which have led me to a place of thinking and feeling the way I do about progressing forward down here, which will then allow me to actually move forward.
So often we come to a point in our lives where we're reacting from a subconscious level, and we do things that we are not very sure as to why we're doing them, why we're reacting the way we do, why we snap at someone we actually love. And in order to reprogram these subconscious beliefs, what is the right approach in order to let that part of us go and reprogram our mind into actually being free from those limits?
Well, it all starts with curiosity. You have to have an open mind to be curious about yourself, why you have these behaviors. Otherwise, you're just living in the reaction. You're just living in the programming. You're just living in the survival state of being unsafe. So it has to start with that, the curiosity. And then from there, that comes with an open mind. I have to be open enough to be curious, to understand myself. And then from there, you're working towards raising self-awareness. So you're working towards raising the awareness of yourself, of the part of yourself that is reacting like that, and why this part is reacting like that. And then to go further, you're essentially from there going to work towards integration. Now that's done through validation, and there are different ways that different parts of you will integrate. Some will only need the awareness, some will only need to be felt and release that emotion. Some will need much, much, much deeper work. So it requires you to even go into the imaginative state and be able to connect with this part of yourself and be able to meet the unmet needs, again, through validation, to understand where this part of you came from. It could be a time from when you were 1 year old, 2 year old, 4 years old. It could be when you were in your mother's womb. We don't know. So it requires that exploration and understanding, but you're never going to get to any of these parts of yourself and be able to integrate them if it doesn't start with the open-mindedness of curiosity about yourself, to understand why I am behaving like this. And because most people's wounds are all about being told off and being the reason, like, you're the reason why I'm like this, you're the reason why I feel bad, everyone's very defensive, and that's understandable. To be defensive is actually a wound. It's when I learned that whenever I get blamed, it's unsafe for me. So when someone's blaming me, I'm always constantly trying to be like, no, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's not my fault about anything and everything. And that in itself is kind of like the Trojan horse, where it doesn't allow you to be open enough to be able to explore yourself, to go, well, why am I like this? Why am I doing this? Because you're stuck in that pattern and behavior of, I need to stay safe by defending myself. And when you're in that, actually, you're extremely unconscious of it. You're living unconsciously. You're living in survival. So this is why the people that truly do get on the path of changing usually will be because you're at rock bottom. You've exhausted all options. There's nothing else left other than to look within, because that programming actually keeps you from it. When people are in a terrible place, believe it or not, it's actually more beneficial for them than people that are not, because it really pushes them to start looking within. And if things are all right, or if things are kind of bad, that's a much harder trap to be in than if things are really, really bad.
So I picked up in another podcast that you had been through a time in your own life. You literally went into every single dark cave inside of yourself and explored all of that. And at this point, I guess so many people, they don't allow themselves to actually go there. They will try to distract themselves because it's scary. It's scary to go there. And so when you take on that journey to explore all the dark elements inside yourself, you really get a hang of who you are.
Yeah.
How important is it to know who you are in order to create your reality?
It's easily, I would say, the most important. It's the only way you're going to tap into abundance. It's the only way that you're going to feel peace. It's the only way that you're going to evolve. There's no other way. And yeah, I went to every corner of my psyche. The first 2 years of my journey, I spent pretty much, I wasn't even watching television. I wasn't really doing it. I was just consuming content about this and understanding, and so fascinating to me. So fascinating. And I soon realized that I was really good at this. I was watching YouTube videos and I knew the answer before, like, the spiritual teacher was answering someone's question and everything. I was like, how do I know that answer instantly? And it's because I'm remembering. I'm not necessarily learning, I'm remembering who I am, and I'm tapped into this. And it's something that I find so fascinating, and that allowed me to really just go within. And I would spend a lot of time within. And obviously at first it did start as a way of kind of getting away from my pain, because I realized the more I went in, there was a lot of like peace there. So there was an element of, using it to escape my pain. Well, what it actually did is it showed me my pain from a different angle, from a root cause. It showed it me from, instead of me just living in the pain, I was observing it. I was like, oh, that's what that is. And then if I move here and I'm living in it, I feel it like this. And if I move out, this is what it, but I was like observing and I was seeing it, and I was going in all corners, doing loads of meditations, and it just showed me. And I saw the nothingness that is in reality, and how everything is expanding out of us, and how we're in kind of like this co-creation mode with everyone else, and how that works, and how other people don't exist in my reality and I don't exist in other people's reality, but we exist through a connection of, kind of like, it was presented to me as how you would play a game, and it's all life on Earth. And I was like, oh, and then each individual avatar character has the connection to their inner world, is what your imagination is, and how that works, and how many parts you are, and how all the parts are creating. I just saw everything, and individually, and I was like, oh, and these parts of myself that I had absolutely no awareness to are carrying the beliefs that they are, which is creating this reality. And I was like, oh, so it's like, all I need to do is all right, well, I'll go over there and I'll be like, hey, like, what's going on? Like, what's happening here? And then these parts of myself were crying, and I was like, oh my God, okay. So I was hugging them, and the more that I did that, the more I could see that their beliefs were not giving energy to the manifested reality that was being created, that I was experiencing. And I was like, oh, this is how this works. And I was going deeper and deeper. So I was seeing like loads of different things. And my journey has been continuously like that. And when I did the ayahuasca ceremony, I actually conquered fear. And I don't mean my fear, the emotion. I mean fear, which is the other half of creation. Because creation is, love and fear. This is why everyone says the opposite of love is fear. There's fear-based emotions, love-based emotions, and this is why contrast exists. This is the two states, masculine, feminine. It's either positive, negative, not negative in the sense of bad, like a battery, positive, negative. It's either on or whatever. So I actually went to fear, but that again was to understand reality and how reality works, because it's a huge part of how reality manifests. These two energies is what creates all of the three-dimensional reality. That's essentially my path, and that's what I'm learning more and more, going down these paths of just seeing like, oh, this is what this is, this is what this is, oh, it's great. And it all comes from within.
Do you believe that the information we carry inside of ourselves is a code that has been passed down from previous generations to us?
Absolutely. There was a study done with mice, and we actually see that trauma is passed down through generations with mice. So they did a study where they would, I think with these certain mice, they would release a smell. I think it was some sort of lotus or something. And every time this smell came up, they would shock the mice. So now the mice were very, very traumatized, and they learned that, oh my God, when this smell comes up, I'm going to get shocked. And then these mice had children, and instantly they separated them from their children because they weren't sure that there's some sort of communication between mice that is not verbal or something that we just don't know. So they instantly separated them. And then the children, what they did is they released the smell of the lotus, and they got scared. They panicked. And they observed this through 5 generations of mice. It worked. So through 5 generations in the DNA, in the coding DNA, they pass down that trauma. This is what ancestral healing is as well. For example, some of my ancestral healing, one of the biggest ones was flying a plane. Terrified of it.
Really?
Yeah. I was so terrified. And you might be like, yeah, well, a lot of people are scared, but I was unnecessary. Like, it was really bad for me, like to the degree where I was just like, when I was on a plane, I couldn't really speak. I couldn't do anything. And I realized that that wasn't mine. That was something that was passed down. So it does. And I know I said about mice in 5 generations, but it's actually the entire lineage for us. So there are things that we are completely passed down. And this also is shown in when your mother was in your grandmother's womb, she already had all of the eggs, which you became one of them as well. So you have also taken on and experienced the experiences of your grandmother's trauma as well. That was passed down through. And so it is something that is passed down through. And this is one of the reasons as well why this work is very challenging. It's very hard, because we're not only dealing with our own stuff. You talk, you hear about it, you're the one that's breaking the chain. Like, you really truly are, to the degree where if you are what a lot of people call the chosen one in the family that is breaking the chain, yeah, it's hard. It's challenging, and it takes a minute, because you're not just dealing with your own stuff. You're dealing with the line, the family line, and everything in your cells and what you're going through. So it's really important to understand that. It's really important to understand that my cells and my body and everything internally is also affected. This is why this work is so important. Because we're not just going from our own experiences, we're going through more what's passed down to us.
If I think about healing my own trauma and the different aspects and the different personalities within myself, will I have to consider as well the different aspects of my mother and her mother in healing that lineage trauma?
All aspects of you when you're healing is you. There will be cases where these aspects are presented to you as different characters with different voices. For example, if I grew up and my mother kept saying something to me like, get up, don't lay down, you need to be productive, you need to do something, that part of myself will adopt that same behavior, adopt the same things that is being said, and internally it will be presented to me as my mother. But it's still me. It's not anyone else. This entire reality is you pushed out. If you think about it like this, if you think, whenever you have a dream, you're able to have a dream and have your mother and your father in that dream, or your friend or your sibling or your coworker or someone else in that dream. But in that dream, who is the version of your mother? Who is that?
Well, I guess it's me.
It's you, because it's all happening in your dream, in your mind. So this is the same thing. Internally, when you are presented these aspects, it's you. It's all you. Everything is you internally. And this is the thing that we really need to understand, because a lot of people are like, I have these demons. And it's like, there is no such thing as demons internally when you're doing the work. Yes, I know there are entities that want to kind of push us to one way and another way, depending on if they're a vibrational match to us. But when I go internal and I see a demon, that's actually my mind's way of showing me this part of myself for whatever reason. It might be because this is how it's showing me it's in that much pain. There was a part of me that was presented as like this black burnt thing. And I understood, I realized, oh, it's me. And it's just showing me that this is how much this part of me is hurt. So you stay with it. And the longer you stay with it, the mind then changes the perception and then shows you that it's actually just a child version of yourself crying. So you're able to do that. And then, or another reason could be because this part of you is so terrified and trying to push you away. So in the state of imagination, everything and anything is possible. There were instances where I went to these parts of myself and they were kind of pushing out images of like these caterpillars that had big teeth and trying to like attack me. And I was like, I understand that this is just imagination. I know nothing's happening. It's okay. I love you. I'm just going to wait here. I just waited, and the longer I waited, then it dissipated. And then it was again the child self. So your entire internal reality is all you. It's just universally thinking and speaking about it. You are also everyone. You are your family's lineage. You are all the cells. You are everything that's been passed down as well. But it's all you.
So when you say we are integrating the parts of ourselves that we are trying to push away, there's one of my favorite quotes by Alan Watts, which says, if you are confronted with a ghost, walk straight into it and it will disappear. Now, you mentioned that different people have different needs when it comes to healing and integrating the aspects of themselves. Does someone need to feel their emotion in order to integrate the part that is in need of being integrated?
When we talk about integration, you got to see integration as kind of more like a resolution. So we have experiences in our lives where we split, fragment our consciousness. This creates multiple parts. We reject some and take some on because they have the behaviors that will protect us. When I'm talking about integration, I'm talking about resolving that split, that fragmentation, because it's kind of like we're integrating, we're bringing back, we're even though I already am whole, the parts that need integrating experience and feel separation, disconnection. So to integrate is to bring back and be whole, be together, merge. It's a resolution of whatever happened in your experience in your life that caused that fragmentation. Now, sometimes that happens by just the awareness. Oh, the awareness of the behavior that I have was enough for that resolution. Sometimes it requires just to feel it. So that part of myself that needed integrating was holding the emotion of anger or despair or fear, guilt. And by just simply feeling that and sitting with it, the awareness comes as well with that. And that's enough. I've integrated it. Now, the big ones, the ones that we really need to like learn how to do, require more. So that would require me connecting to these parts of myself through allowing myself to have any and all of its thoughts that's coming up, to be able to connect and feel what this part of myself is feeling. And I do that through the validation. So I validate the thoughts and the feelings. And then once I've connected, I then remain in that feeling. And it's going to take longer to eventually dissipate and release. And then from there, I understand where this part came from. What experience did I have in my past that caused that fragmentation? And then once I do that, then I can understand the unmet needs and work towards meeting those needs. Whether it's I can meet them in a state of imagination in that moment, or whether it's a behavioral change that I need to adopt in my external reality. That might mean stop going to parties that we don't want to keep going to, stop abandoning ourselves all the time. Okay, I can do that. Or whether that's, hey, I need to be around people that can actually meet these needs. I need to be around people that can meet the needs I have for other, because we're not all that we need. We can't meet all of our own needs. But by going to this part and doing this, I'm able to understand all of this communication, what it is. And that essentially eventually leads to integration. And in those moments as well, what we would do is kind of, we'd like in the state of imagination to help along with the integration and the peaceful kind of merging and connection, whether it's we do something like drink healing water or get into the healing water, and whatever modalities we have to create a safe space for this part of yourself, whatever this part needs. That requires that knowledge and understanding of how to do that to fully integrate these parts of ourselves. So our goal is integration, but then it's like, all right, well, this part needs this, needs more. This part just needs the awareness. This part needs the full integration. This part needs just feeling. So it really depends on which part's coming up and your ability to do so.
Yeah. So that comes back to knowing yourself, right? And being able to understand what part of you needs validation.
Yeah. That's how you know, that is how you know yourself. Like when you do the integration, it can only happen through the understanding. When I understand, oh, the behavior that I have comes from this experience, which also comes from this experience, which always made me to believe this, which is why this belief of mine exists, which is why I do this. And now because I understand and have that, and I'm meeting these unmet needs, now I have so much data and information, I'm not going to necessarily go down that path anymore.
Yeah. I can absolutely say that was similar on my journey, where in the last 2 years, I was on a journey to exploring loneliness. And one of the things that I had to integrate was nurture, as that wasn't passed down. And so it was a childhood wound. And it was something that I really had to explore. And I believe nurture is such a strong need that we have. And being able to self-nurture was a huge brick that was missing in the foundation of my house. Yeah, it's interesting how you say that everyone's journey is so individual. So unique. I really like this concept of the shadow work in order to also explore your spiritual self. Now, when it comes to spiritual work and being spiritually connected, did you make the experience that you have to be able to hit rock bottom and go into these dark spaces in order to have that spiritual connection? Or can someone also have a spiritual connection without having to meet their shadow aspects?
What do we mean by spiritual connection? I think that's a very important part of it, because a spiritual connection, everyone and everything is a spiritual connection. Even the people that are in the worst place, the people that you would define as the least spiritual, are also having a spiritual experience. So that connection is always there. But I think what you're meaning is the ability to recognize that you are spirit, that you are yourself as the soul having an experience. Now, you will not be able to get to that awareness without doing the work. You just can't. You can't get to a place of understanding what you are and who you are without exploring yourself. And you cannot explore yourself by not exploring the shadow. You just can't. So literally, the shadow aspect of you is the 95% of you. It's the most you that you are. The conscious awareness 5% is actually not the main driver of your experience in this reality and who you are. So the shadow is playing the biggest role. And if you don't do that work and go into the shadow, you will not understand who you are. And if you don't understand who you are, you won't understand what you are. You won't have that awareness that I am a spiritual being having a temporary human experience in a reality that I'm continuously manifesting myself.
It's interesting because I feel like everyone in my circle, friend circle and colleagues, everyone who actually knows what their soul purpose is, they know who they are, they've all had these massive episodes in their life where they had to really push through. They really had to, I guess, allow themselves to sink and go all the way down. But with other people in my life, I can say that they try to follow me in my thoughts, like going there, but it just doesn't link in. And as much as I explain or much as I try to get them there, you can't be validated by other people who haven't gone where you've gone. Out of, let's say, the entire population, I would say with a lot of confidence that probably 99% of people don't go there.
I would tend to agree with you. I think it's changing, and I'm not entirely sure or to give you an accurate number, but I would definitely say it's in the 90 percentile, definitely. And it's something that is changing. It's changed so much in the last 10 years and will change more in the coming 10 years again. This is why we're having this conversation online and we're putting it out there in the world, is to help people have that awareness, to understand it, to speed up that awareness. But it is something that, we all kind of realize we struggle with, especially if you're a coach or a healer or someone on this path trying to help people along this path. You do start by wanting to share what you're learning, wanting to show people like, oh my God, this is the answer. It feels amazing. It's true. It's great. And, the only reason that you're where you are is because you were ready to see, you were ready to experience what you've experienced. And a lot of people are not, even though they want to. So a lot of people will be like, I want to, but then they're not allowing themselves to. So part of them wants to, but so many parts of them don't want to. And realistically, sometimes the people in your life that you're not able to show this to are not actually meant to see it.
Are they meant to be in your life?
Yes, for that reason. They're meant to be. It could be. The reason that they're in your life is to get you to where you are now, and that's it. But then, we see this in relationships, what most people will call twin flames. And, there's a lot of, well, twin flame means this and this and this. If someone's here to show you yourself so much so where then that ending of the relationship is what wakes you up, that doesn't necessarily mean the other person's going to be on the journey that you are in terms of waking up. It could mean that's what it's there for. That's why this person incarnated here. Whether it's a partner, whether it's a family member, it could be a cousin. But your cousin or your brother or your workers or whatever it is are not here to be on the same path as you. That could be the case. Or it could be that they're going to start theirs 10 years later. But because we want to help, that's what we're here for. And also, especially if you're early on this journey, you kind of assign what you're learning as the value that you have and are. So I did this myself as well on this journey. I ended up really kind of abandoning myself and going into burnout, and I was just giving too much of myself away, because what I'm learning and I was giving out there, and people were like, oh my God, this is so cool. This is great. Oh, this is, and I was like, oh, look, that gives me value. Look at that. That's my value. So then I'll give more and give more and give more. And then I realized, like, oh, I was doing on Meetup, I was doing free workshops, which is understandable. It's how you start. You always start by giving things away for free, and then you grow, and and people were like, hey, can I just have a quick call with you after this call? And I was like, yeah. And I'd jump on the call and stay up for like 3 hours helping them. And then it was like 1 in the morning. And then I was like, oh, my dishes aren't done. My house is a mess. I've gone to bed late, and I got to wake up early for my son for school. Like, I'm really tired now. The next day I'm old. I was just giving myself away because it was giving me value. And then I learned that, and I realized, like, no. I'm not doing that anymore. And now because what you give out there is what you're telling the universe that you want your reality to be. So because I wasn't valuing my time, I wasn't creating a reality where my time was valued. So then that meant that I wasn't making sales. That meant that people didn't really, I was only getting people that wanted things for free, and I wasn't able to build my business and have a livelihood doing this. So I realized, and I was like, nope, that's not okay. So now if anyone's like, hey, can I have an hour? Like, can we have a chat? I'll be like, yeah, here's the calendar. This is how much it is. This is the minimum amount that you've got to purchase. And, oh, no, I just wanted to chat. No, sorry, it's not going to happen. It's not. And I value my time now, which means that I actually don't try and force anyone down a path they don't want to go down anymore, which is what we try and do when we're trying to share all of this. I share everything that I know, and that I'm a teacher, but I do it to people that want to learn. If you don't want to learn, that's fine. I'm never going to try and force anyone to see something that they don't want to see. I don't have an interest in debating anything with anyone. I will absolutely have an open conversation in a very respectful way. And if someone's got a question about something, we will converse about it. But if someone's trying to debate me and tell me I'm wrong and things like that, I'm like, okay, like, that is okay. I don't need you to believe me. It's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to help the people that want help. I'm not here to try and force help down someone's throat that doesn't want it.
I really admire that. I think it's really cool to know this precise. This is who I am. This is where my boundaries are. This is what I'm willing to do. And this is what I'm not willing to do. And again, I would say 99% of the population are not actively doing that.
No, they're not. And it actually helps them do it, though. If I'm just putting information out there and I'm not shoving it down someone's throat, it actually makes them go, let me listen. What's he saying? And it kind of opens them up a little bit. And then they'll go, oh, yeah, all right, fine, whatever. And then they'll hear something else and they'll be like, And then they'll hear something else and go, you know what? This guy's actually saying some stuff. Like, what's going on here? And then out of nowhere, they're spiritually awoken, let's say.
Yeah.
But it's from not shoving it. Go on.
So when you have found your path and your line of like, this is the topic that I chose, that I'm developing on and that I want to teach on, do you have a strategy for that as well? Because personally myself, I find myself often interested in different topics that all link together. But I think for my audience, it's quite distracting that I'm jumping.
You're here to share your experience. You're not here to read a book and then share what you're learning from a book. So your experience is going from here to here to here to here to here. Recently, right now, I'm getting more in the learning and teachings of abundance more and more. So I'm teaching more about abundance. You know, I already had a certain amount, and then I learned about surrendering. I was like, whoa, that's what surrendering is. That's what it means. So then I share about surrendering. People can either keep up or they can't. Other people's progression shouldn't ever alter yours. And the great thing about you is you're also putting content on like long form platforms. So whether it's like YouTube or audio podcasts or anything like that. So, you know, you can have like 100 listeners today and 100 listeners in a week and 100 other listeners in 2 weeks and like in the same episode. So people that are, if we're talking energetically, people that are a vibrational match to the lessons that you're putting out there will find it. Whenever, if I put a YouTube video out yesterday and someone might find that in a year's time, that will be a vibrational match to it. So it's about you being you. Your ability to tap into abundance mainly is dependent on you being aligned with your journey and being who you are to the full degree. Burnout comes from that misalignment. So for example, if you're like, oh, I can't move on to the next thing that I'm experiencing that I actually want to talk about, I need to focus on this, that misalignment will make you go, okay, I need to do more here, and I'm doing more here, more here. That is what gets you to burnout. That's what is heavy. That's what your joy's gone in that stage, because you're doing things that you don't really want to do, but what you think you should do. And that's the misalignment.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
I've been through burnout, and it literally came through the mindset of comparing what is it that I like doing to what do people need me to do. And I was in the what do people need me to do, which comes out of the lack of not being enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that has taken the joy out of it because I wasn't in alignment and I wasn't authentically myself.
Yeah.
Now it's been challenging to get myself on the path of alignment, because I think my path of doing it, or my way of doing it, was literally trying to push everything away that was not there and holding space for myself.
This is where surrender comes in.
Okay, tell me everything about it.
Okay, so if you're especially in burnout, this is where surrender is like the option. And you're either going to consciously do it, or the universe is going to force you to do it. So before we go into that, I do want to ask a question, because this is really going to help with mindset shifts. You said I wanted to do what my audience needed. How do you know what they need?
Well, if you see yourself as a creator of a service or a product, you're very often told in business to look for the market gaps, to look for what people need. Mm-hmm. Basically, look in your environment, look through conversations, look through what's currently trending online, all of these things.
Right. But what if the thing that's trending online is a TikTok dance?
That would be very much not in alignment with me. So it was easy to say no to that.
Right. So you're not, there are strategies and tactics to business for sure. Okay. You need to figure out your target audience. You need to figure out the pain points, the desirable outcomes, all of that stuff to understand what is needed. You don't want to create an idea. You need to work out what people need for sure. But you're in the space where you're giving information right now as well. And if I go, okay, well, I'm giving information. What do for yourself? I need to create what people need. Who says that they don't need the next thing as well that you're going to do? They need to progress from this to this. Right now, we're going to talk about surrender. But let's say if we just focused on talking about burnout and didn't talk about surrender. You see, like they are going to need that next level as well, and that next level as well, and that stage and that stage. So it's kind of like this mindset of, all right, let's say if I have 1,000 people, let's say, for example, I'm keeping it very simple. I've got 1,000 people that I want to target here. This is what I think they need. You're discounting new people that would need something else as well. So this is the great thing about the long form content that you're creating. It's like by just creating it and progressing and sharing your story, you're opening up different avenues of different levels of the target audience to be able to come and understand. So just that simple mindset shift of like, oh yeah, like I'm actually allows you to continue like, okay, I need to tell them about what I'm going through now. And I need to tell them what I'm going through now, which brings us to surrender. So we need to look at reality mechanically. What I mean by that is why we're being told what we're being told. Why is a spiritual teacher telling me to trust? Why is a spiritual teacher telling me to go towards joy? Like that, it can seem so invalidating when I'm in such a hard place and I'm so angry and how do you do it? Go towards joy. Shut the fuck up. Like that is so invalidating. Why are you saying that? So by understanding why will help so much. So I always explain it as like, you're going through billions of realities a second. That's what we use time for. Time is what we use to go through realities. So you're always constantly manifesting. Your goal and what we're trying to do when we say manifest is actually steering where we're going in realities, what realities we want to experience. Now, anyone that would experience burnout, anyone would be a misalignment. And the reason that that happens is because you're trying to narrow down and create a specific reality, a specific outcome, whatever that is. I need this to be like this. This has to go like this. The reason anyone would narrow down all possibilities that could be experienced isn't actually because you're trying to create that specific reality. It's actually because you're trying to avoid the opposing reality. So for example, if I'm narrowing down and I need to create a reality where I'm selling these online courses or something like that, it's because I'm actually trying to get away from a reality where I'm not selling these online courses. So actually what's happening is you're giving more energy to creating the reality that you don't want.
So true.
So what does surrender mean? Surrender is to not have as much of a narrow creation, because what you're doing in that narrow creation is you're not allowing anything else to come in. You're like so narrow. It's like, no, I'm not going to look at anything else. I'm just focused on this. And like these other realities are like, but what if I give you a podcast deal? No, it has to be like this. Forget it. I don't want that. But what if a YouTube video goes viral? No, it has to be this. So I'm discounting everything in that moment. So it's like, okay, well, how do I open up and allow something else to come in? And the way you actually do that is to get to a place where you're accepting that there is the possibility that reality that you're trying to avoid comes into play. You're surrendering. What are you surrendering? What are you letting go of? I'm letting go of my fight, my like control of avoiding something. Because the more you push, eventually reality is going to happen to you. You're not going to happen to reality. That means you are you have no control of it. And that's scary, very scary. And by allowing that to open, so by surrendering, you kind of go, okay, I'm opening up. And how do I do that? I get to the mindset and actually genuinely be okay with whatever's happening, it happens. That will change your frequency. That will change the way that you're doing things.
There is a question, because I've come to this point myself so many times. And I always get stuck with, yes, I'm really letting it go. But then my mind tricks me back into, Yes, but we're just saying that in order to trick the universe to make it already happen.
Yeah, that's where the integration
So we're
work
not doing
comes
it.
in. Well, that's where the integration work comes in. And that's not truly letting it go. That's just trying to, like you said, trick the situation for it to happen. And trust me, the more you understand reality, the more that will be a struggle. You know, the term ignorance is bliss. Mm-hmm. It's so true. The more you understand reality and how it works, the more challenging it's going to be to, let go and stuff. Sometimes for me, this is my biggest challenge. But it's about doing the integration work, allowing yourself to really feel and truly being like, look, by me going, all right, I'm going to do this to get that, you're not doing it. So just know that, no, you are going to experience the thing you don't want to experience. You are. And it's going to be scary. But that's the point, is to stay in that fear. Allow that fear to come in. Feel it. To let yourself be with that fear. Because eventually you'll realize that, oh, yeah, okay, you'll miss payments and everyone will think you're terrible and everyone will be talking about you and all the fears that you have will come up and you'll be like, yep, yeah, now what? And that's the power. And then you realize that 10 years ago, you had similar challenges that you got over and you don't even think about now. So in 10 years' time, this challenge you'll get over and you won't even think about now. And then spiritual teachers like myself will go, and you have to trust. Yeah, fuck. What do you mean? Or better yet, let's do joy first. So then you have to go towards your joy. Your joy, this is a bit of a tricky one as well, because you actually have to learn what joy is internally. Because you have so many programmings of society and school and your upbringing that feeling good is not joy. Joy is a form of feeling good, but you can feel good in so many different ways. For example, you can do loads of stuff on your website today and feel good. You're like, yeah, I was productive. And then you can misinterpret that as joy. And you're like, I need to follow my joy. What do? I need to follow being productive. Yeah. But you can spend a year being productive and working on the wrong thing. So you need to work out what joy is. Joy feels a lot lighter. And it can be scary going towards joy because so many parts of you will be like, but that's not going to get us to our goal. Talking about this subject isn't necessarily going to get us to our goal. Doing a TikTok live or an Instagram live isn't necessarily going to get us to our goal. But that's the joy. Why are we being told to go towards joy? Because we've narrowed down so much. And then surrendering kind of goes, all right, yeah, I'm letting go. Joy opens it up even more. So I'm actually opening up the possibilities of more realities to come in. That's what joy does. It's kind of opening even more. And then you do that and you're terrified. You're like, I don't know if this is going to work. Like, I don't know. Like, this is ridiculous. And then the universe says, trust. You're like, ugh, there's that invalidating thing again. Trust. And because I've been so betrayed in my past, because my version of trust has always been, all right, well, if you're telling me to trust, then that means that it will work out like this. It will have this outcome. And then that outcome didn't happen. It's like, well, I can't trust you anymore. I can't trust you as the universe because you're saying trust, but it came to the end of the month and I still missed my payments. So because I have an expectation of how it needs to be, now I'm using that as a reason not to trust. But what does trust do? It fully opens it. It allows any and all possibilities to come in. So if you think of it as like a circle and you're like narrowing down to one part of the circle, and think of it like a 3D globe or even, a ball, and you're narrowing it down to just one point. And then to surrender as you're opening up more. And then you use joy to even open it up even more. And then trust to fully open it. So any direction, all possible directions, the realities can come in. That is what surrendering is. That is the reason why we are being called to surrender. And that's how it mechanically works in reality.
I think what comes to my mind is a quote that says, courage is seeing the risk and doing it anyway. Stupidity is looking at the risk and doing it anyway. And this is where life hurts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we don't know the difference often.
We don't. It's true. I think I love that quote. I really, really do. The risk is really, really, it's hard. The bigger risk, the bigger reward, for sure. You know, if I risk $1,000, my return will be in the thousands. If I risk millions of dollars, my return will be in the millions. But the $1 million risk is a bigger risk than the $1,000 risk. The way I always kind of talk about it or describe is the emotion. So if I have fear to this, I move forward anyway. And there's a lot to be learned there. And it will help me grow. How much that growth is completely dependent on my ability to understand the situation, the lesson, the experience, and myself. But it really truly does. Look, this is the thing. It's like, we're talking about surrendering. We're talking about burnout. Anyone that would be in burnout and need to surrender is because you're going through a really hard time. You're going through a period of your existence where you're really being shown the deep parts of your concerns, your wounds, your beliefs. That's why your reality is manifesting the way it is. But at the same time, and I know this can sound quite invalidating, but at the same time, if we just it's like, yeah, it happens. It's like, so what? So what? The worst thing happens. And this is a huge part of it. And something that I'm going through right now, like there are huge parts of myself that are coming up. And one of my mantras from what I went through 2 days ago, actually, now came up, is that I'm never going to sell myself again. And I realized that for the longest time, I've been selling myself. I don't mean selling my programs or courses or, I mean, I was still trying to be someone so people would accept me. I realized I was still trying to be someone so my partner would accept me. So she would think that I was a specific type of person. And that was really hurting me. And I was trying to sell myself. I was trying to, this is where like defensiveness comes in as well. Because I realized I was like, oh, I'm being quite defensive recently. Like, why am I being so defensive? And the reason why I was being defensive is because I realized that I learned that other people's perception of me is who they made me out to be, even though that wasn't necessarily who I was. So I would do something or say something, and it would be perceived in a specific way. And that would be used against me in my life, in my childhood. I was the scapegoat. And I realized no, that's not true. That's not who I am. So I'm constantly trying to defend myself. No, this isn't but that is me selling myself. No, please, this isn't who I am. This is who I am. You should love me for me. You're thinking something so differently of me, and that's not what it is. This is who I am. Which comes from a place of, I'm not good enough. Because if you think that I'm this version of myself that I'm not, then that must be true. And that's not who I am, and I'm not good enough. So please love me. Please accept me. But then I realized I was able to let that go by going, all right, I let go of my defensive nature by just being like, okay, you think what you want. I'm not going to try and change that. I'm truly not. I'm going to be who I am. And if you can't see me, then you can't see me. I'm not necessarily speaking just about my partner. Every single human in the planet. I will never sell myself again. Ever. I said this to someone the other day and they were like, well, no, you got to sell yourself. It's like, what if you want to work with other people and get investment and everything? It's like, no, I'm selling an idea. I'm not selling myself. I will say that this is my goal. This is my mission. Do you want to join me? If you don't, that's fine. And then it's like, well, what if you got to sell? What if you've got to tell them about your ability to do this and that? That's a conversation about the skills that I have. It's a conversation. It's like, hey, do you want to be on this journey with me? Even investors. It's like, you can come on this journey with me. I'm not doing this for you. I'm not selling myself to you. If you want to learn more about what I do and who I am, let's have a conversation. But it's not a sale. You either do or you don't. And I can be very tactical about it. I can be like, yeah, in order for me to be able to get what I need to get, that investment to be able to do this next step or next stage, I can have a conversation and show my vision, show my mission, and I can be like, this is what we're going to do. And if you want to learn more, let's have a chat. But I'm done selling myself forever to anyone, ever.
This is such an important point, because the more coaches there are out there and the more people put their content online, I can see more and more people trying to push for this narrative of like, you need to be your own personal brand and your brand is what sells. And I think I can see even here the polarity in what you're saying, because the more you're trying to be this brand, you're not it.
Yeah. And this is where, like, so a lot of people will be like, well, what are you going towards? I'm going towards authenticity. But realistically, no one's ever fully authentic, myself included. I will be as authentic as I think, or better yet, as I want to be online. Because realistically, I don't want to share my private life with the world. I don't. It's private. It's me. It's for my family. I want to protect myself and protect my family. So there's going to be a level that I'm not going to put out there, but I'm going to be more authentic than most. That is for sure. And the whole thing is to be the teachings that you're trying to put out there, and I will be as authentic as possible. And the whole branding thing, yeah, for sure. It's an amazing strategy. And everyone is their own brand and always has been. It was the same in the schoolyard, and it's the same now with social media. So I can be tactical about that as well. Like, all right, well, what do I want my brand to be like? I want it to be like this, presented like this. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do that. For sure, yeah. But again, that's more of a strategy now for me than it was. I need to make sure that I seem like I'm good enough. Like I seem desirable. And then you're right. That is, and it's a flip. It's a flip of mindset. My brand has a strategy, but it no longer comes from trying to sell myself. It comes from, this is who I am. This is who I'm presenting myself to be. And that, for me personally, is going to be to a level of authenticity that I choose to do so because I don't want to share too much of myself. And no one should. No one should share too much of themselves at all. And honestly, like, again, authenticity is like, it's so weird, especially with social media. Like, for example, if I'm going through a healing and I'm crying, and in that moment, I'm like posting myself crying, that doesn't feel authentic, even though I am being authentic. It's like, why am I posting myself crying? I'm posting myself crying for a reason. But then in that moment, I need to be with myself. And then I'm taking away from being myself. And so it's like, it's this kind of like, well, what is authentic in that moment when it comes to sharing yourself in the world? for me, the most authentic thing in that moment is for me to be with me, because that's what these parts need. That's what these parts want. So I'm not even able to be fully authentic with the world on social media. It's not possible, because in the moments where I would try and show my authentic truth, it takes me out of being authentic.
One of the biggest things that I learned here is that the moment I'm not thinking about myself and I'm just like, we're in a conversation talking about things that we believe are of value to other people, but we're not doing it because we're selling ourselves. We're doing it because we're having an experience in this conversation. And another thing that I would like to share with you that someone shared with me that I thought was absolutely beautiful. When you are being authentic, it's not the same as sharing all of your world with social media and the rest of the world. One of the things that I've become extremely careful with is to know I'm a body of frequency. And no matter what I do and experience and how I feel creates a frequency and creates ripples outward. Now, people observing me on social media having a public cry will bring their ripples of frequency into my world. And I want to protect myself from that, because I don't necessarily need other people's projections in my frequency.
Yeah. This is a very interesting conversation, actually, because depending on what stage you're at will determine and depend on kind of how you do that. For example, earlier on in my life, I cut that stuff out. I would swipe, like go, no, I don't want to see that. Now, because it was really affecting, I didn't have the skills that I do now. I didn't have the abilities that I do now. Now I can view it and it doesn't affect me. But that doesn't mean that it will never affect me. For example, if I look at a specific thing and I go into the observation mode, become the observer, I'm not taking on. People can let it off. That doesn't mean that it's always going to come in. The only way that it comes in is if I take it on. So I can be around people and not take it on. The most powerful way of doing that is by going in the observation mode to become the observer self. So you're literally observing, and through that observation, you're feeling that separation. Now, that doesn't mean that if let's say we're continuing the example of social media, if I'm scrolling through social media and the next 50 videos that I watch are all that type of stuff, it's eventually, going to get a bit heavy and I'm like, oh, it will affect me. And that's very normal and it's meant to. It's the way that it is. That's why I don't put myself in specific scenarios. That's why I will only have podcast conversations with certain people, not everyone. This is why I don't want to talk about specific subjects as well, because it will take me into, I have no interest in talking about politics, let's say. It's not, I'm not interested in debating people. It will take us or take the conversation to those energies. And it's not part of my path. It's not really, I don't really know anything about these things either. So I am very aware about what am I exposing myself to? What am I allowing into my reality? What am I putting myself in? I stopped hanging around and connecting to a lot of people. I only literally have one or two friends from my first life, let's call it, before I started my awakening, that I still keep in communication with. I realized that I didn't like putting myself in the environments of all the people that I previously knew, because every time I did, I would go over there and the conversations would be about complaining about one thing or complaining about something else. Like, what am I doing? And then I went to the stage where I was like, yeah, but, let's talk about this. And they just didn't want to do that. And I was like, okay, well, I realized I need to stop putting myself in that environment. I need to protect myself in that sense. So the more you do this work, the more you connect, the more you practice. And I always call it strengthening the observer muscle. I actually have a meditation called strengthening the observer muscle. It's a part of my inner awareness framework. Your ability to strengthen that observer muscle is what will get you to be able to start observing in the really challenging times, to be like, oh, okay, no, this is what it is. No, this is what it is. And it will really allow you to have much more control and make the decisions of, do I want to go down this path? Do I want to go down this path? Which will then reflect in your reality. When you get to a stage where you're like, no, I'm done putting myself in those environments, the universe goes, okay, I'll bring you healthier environments. That's no problem. So it's a huge part of how you're creating your reality as well. The decisions you make, what you believe about yourself and the world around you, how you act, the action you take, all of these things are the biggest players in the realities that you're experiencing. So if you continue remaining in toxic, unhealthy relationships and environments, what you're telling the universe is, it's okay to send me more like this. And the universe is going to go, okay.
I have a question to that. I have, in the last year, removed a lot of people out of my life.
Mm-hmm.
The quality of the relationships I kept, however, has increased. Am I telling the universe, however, that I'm okay with less people in my life, in my friendship circle?
No, you're actually telling the universe, unless you are consciously thinking that, the act of what you're doing is you're telling the universe that, don't send me anyone that I'm not going to be able to have a healthy conversation, to have healthy relationship with. And the people that are still in your life, the reason that those relationships have evolved and changed is because you're getting different versions of them, because of the action, the decision, what you're putting out there into the universe. So it's not uncommon that it takes a moment for that to happen, because it could be for anything. So like, for example, you still might need to get to a place where you're comfortable on your own more to then allow other things to come in as well. You know, the reason why you're able to connect with other people now that can see you, that can be there for you, is because you're seeing yourself and being there for yourself. And by doing that, you get to a place where you're like, I'm not okay with putting myself in an environment that is not okay for me. It's people don't see me, or people don't hear me, and people won't validate me, understand me. That's when you're telling the universe, bring me people that will hear me, understand me, and see me.
So you just said you're attracting the people that are acting in a similar way that I'm acting also towards myself.
Yeah, that's how this reality works. This reality is all about how you treat yourself. And this is why abundance, to tap into it, is to be more yourself. Abundance is like a flow state energy. It's not actually anything to do with money. It's really not. It's just an energy of receiving. So the more you are yourself, the more you're tapping into, and I mean unapologetically yourself. And the only way you can do that is by doing the work and understanding all of the ways that you're not being yourself. So to be receiving more abundantly is to be yourself. So the more I go towards being me, sticking to my boundaries, knowing my worth, knowing my values, and being in alignment with them, is what's going to bring and attract people to me in that energy that will match who I am being.
I can definitely say that the more I am very clear on the person I am and the people I want to attract in my life, the more I also put the actions out there that are in alignment with that, but that are also in alignment with, let's say, a higher version of myself, the person I want to become, and the person I identify as.
This is very interesting as well, because if I was to simplify it, this entire journey is just about you being you. That's it. It's just becoming more you. Now, we, especially at this plane, in this dimension, and especially with the ego, will be like, I identify as. And that's true. There's nothing wrong with that. I do the same. But realistically, we're not even kind of doing that. You're just being you. Because realistically, there are things that you identify yourself as that is so true to you and that will never change until you exit this reality. For example, your name is Laura, and that's an identity. You identify. If I called you Arian, you wouldn't. If I shouted Arian behind you, you wouldn't turn your head. But if I shouted Laura, you'd be like, oh, because you're identifying that. But realistically, that's just a name that was given to you from being born. If the name was different, you would identify as different, but you're still you. And the goal really, and what we're actually doing, is just being you. You're working towards being you. That's all that we're essentially doing. So what I've started doing to myself in my head is, instead of going, I'm going to be that version of myself, I'm just going to more towards, I'm just going to be me. And this is why a couple of days ago, when I had this realization of, I'm going to stop selling myself, it really took me so much closer to just being me. Because I've constantly tried to be a version of myself for other people. And then I was trying to be a version of myself for myself. But if I'm trying to be a version of myself, in a way, I'm not trying to be me. I'm trying to be a version of myself.
So you've removed every conditioning.
Well, I'm working towards removing any conditions that I become aware of. No, I've definitely not removed every conditioning. I don't think we'll ever get to that stage. You know, even the people that are like, I'm enlightened, is like, the goal is not enlightenment. It's not. The goal is.
Let's speak about enlightenment.
Yeah.
So I had a couple of experiences where, once in a very traumatic state, once in a healing state, I felt as if I had left one playing field and some energy had put me in another dimension. What happened with me in that moment?
Well, where were you? What were you doing?
I wasn't doing anything particular. The last time it happened was actually just 2-3 weeks ago. And I woke up and I felt like I was an entire, not different person. I was still myself, but it felt as if I was myself in another reality.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because anything outside of me had changed, but there was the awareness that it had changed.
Your conscious awareness, it sounds like your conscious awareness went into a different reality, a different experience. Because you here in this plane, you're the extension of you, your higher self. So think of it as like my nail or my finger is the extension of Arian, but I have many nails and many fingers. You are the extension of your higher self, but the awareness that is at this one can also just pop into this one. Or better yet, you connected to the awareness that you are as the soul that's having these many experiences, and you went into this experience moment. You had the awareness of that experience in that moment. This is where people can do this, and this is where like plant medicine also takes people to different experiences that the higher self, that we would call it, that soul, is having, because we are incarnating in many different experiences. This is again why you can actually experience yourself in the same reality as well. And it doesn't necessarily need to be humans. You can understand and feel that a dog is you and have that experience, or a tree. The conscious awareness that you are here in this plane was able to connect and for a short period of time experience that as well. And that could be for many reasons. It could be to show you that this stuff is real. It could be to bring a certain awareness up to you. It could be to be able to activate and trigger something in you that is ready to be seen. It could be from a number of different reasons.
Is this what you would call quantum jumping?
So yes, if it was still you in a different reality, it's the same awareness. This is kind of like what you would call a psychic. So a psychic can't really tell the future because there is no future. A psychic reads energy of a highly likely possible reality that's coming into existence. That's what a psychic does. And
that's exactly what it felt like.
Yeah. It's more like that. It's being able to read or be aware of the energy of a reality that could come into existence.
So what is then quantum leaping?
Well, in the quantum field, you're constantly jumping. You're constantly manifesting. So if you think of it as you're going through billions of realities a second. Have you ever watched Avengers or Doctor Strange?
Avengers, yes, I'm familiar with.
So Doctor Strange has that portal, doesn't he? Where he goes like that and the portal opens. And then what he can do is he can walk through that, or he can get the portal to go through him. So he moves the portal through him. And now obviously he's not going into a different reality. He's going into a different place of, space-time. But think about that portal being a different reality, right? And just the way he makes it go through himself, think that's happening. And he's going through different realities. And it's happening billions of times a second. And think of that portal the size of the universe. That's what's happening. You're going through billions of realities a second. Now, in a way, that's the quantum jump in itself. You're kind of like jumping billions of times a second because it's happening in the quantum field. That's where the realities are shifting. When people talk about quantum jumping and they're saying, oh, I moved from this reality to this reality because this huge change happened, it's the same thing, but it's just manifesting different because you're changing your internal world. So remember earlier I said it's not about, oh, I'm going to manifest. You're always manifesting. It's about steering that manifestation. So what people say like, oh, I jumped into this other reality is like, yeah, you've been doing that billions of times a second. It's just you're steering it to this reality. And eventually, because the old manifestations and the old stories were continuously coming and coming and coming up, because you changed and you changed your vibration, you were slowly going into this other reality. And then eventually you arrived in it, which is what we would call, oh, I quantum jumped. It's like, yeah, you did. But you're just constantly doing it anyway. This is why learning your internal world and yourself and how you work and how you're creating reality, how it's all a feedback, how to understand that feedback using your senses, using your emotions, using your thoughts, understanding your beliefs. All of that is how you steer where you want to go. And this is why I teach what I teach, because it's one thing to learn, all right, I'm going to teach you how to change your mindset. It's like, I'm going to teach you how to steer reality, because that changes your mindset. I'm not just giving you one part of the puzzle. I'm giving you as much as I can, because you're essentially in a vehicle. This vessel, this human being, this being is a vehicle. And learning how to drive that vehicle will get you to your destination so much faster.
But first you need to know what your destination is, which then you're kind of trying to control it, right?
Well, if you need to know, you're trying to control it. Look, this is where free will comes in as well. And this is really important, because a lot of people are talking about free will, but they're not seeing the kind of bigger picture. Everyone's like, well, you either do have free will or you don't. It's like, no, you do and you don't. There was a choice you made before coming here. Now, if you're misaligned with that choice, things are not going to work. You're going to get burnt out. You're going to get disease. You're going to, it's just not going to work. But you have the free will to make the choice of which direction you go down. So, for example, my path was to do what I'm doing, to be the spiritual teacher, to have these experiences, to teach people. Now, if I was trying to be an accountant, that wouldn't work for me. Not to say an accountant is bad, but it wouldn't work for me. I would really hate life. I would really be miserable. I would be burnt out all the time, even if I was making money. And I'd probably manifest disease. I'd manifest a life that isn't enjoyable, with no peace, no abundance. I always say it's like a maze or a rat maze. It's like there is one path out, but you get to choose if you want to turn left, if you want to turn right, if you want to go straight. But if you turn left, you'll realize that there's a dead end and you need to come back. And then you'll go straight and you realize, oh yeah, this is it. So life is like that. It's like there is a path, but you have the free will to choose which way you go down.
What is your take on the question, is there a God?
It really depends on what you mean by God. Because a lot of people will hear God and their perception and their belief is like this man in the sky with a beard that looks down on us, that wants worship. Like, no, there's not. Is there a creator? Yes. All of everything in existence on every dimension, source, creation, creator exists because we are part of it. When you kind of awaken and you open your mind, you realize things that make so much sense that didn't make sense to you when you were awake. The concept of existence in itself, by definition, existence exists and cannot not exist, because that's the definition of existence. So we would look at like, oh, well, we die and then we don't exist. Like, no, by definition, existence cannot not exist, but it can change. Existence can change. So you, as your conscious awareness that is existing, changes state when you die. Is God real? You are God. You are existence. You're the extension of existence, God, source, creator, creation. You are creation creating. When I had my ayahuasca ceremony, there was a moment where I just kind of like, I was laughing to myself and I was smiling and I was like, I wish physicists could see what I was seeing right now. Because I was seeing the foundations and layout of reality and how it all, like, that's my path. My path is to learn about reality so I can explain it to people. And I was like, I really wish they could see this. And it's not bad or wrong or anything. It's what I'm putting out into the world as a new idea. Right now, we have physicists that will grab reality and then use another form of reality, another part of reality, to examine this part of reality, whether it's a microscope, whether it's the Large Hadron Collider, whatever it is. And I'm like, but you are reality. You can observe yourself. Go internal. See, the deeper you go, the more you're going to see reality. You don't need to grab this and this and this. And not that it's wrong. It's good. It helps us so much. It teaches us about the 3D so much. But at the same time, don't discount that you are what you're trying to learn. Have a look. Go within. Go. The more you go in and the more you see, like, oh my God, this is reality, because I am reality. I am creation. Everything that creation is what we would call source, God, the creator. So you are an extension of God. This is why I hate the concept of worshipping. Oh my God. Oh my me. I hate it because it really diminishes who you are and what you are. Stop worshipping, because you are God. You are the extension of creation. You do not need to worship this thing, because when you're trying to worship something else, you're seeing a separation from you and that thing. So the whole mere concept of worshipping is disconnection. But when you really truly know who you are and what you are, that's when you find yourself. That's where peace is. That's where abundance is. That's where love is. That's where everything you're trying to look for is.
So good. Arian, it has been not only happiness, but an absolute joy to connect with you today.
It's been great.
Thank you so much for your time and energy and insight. And I know we answered the final last question the last time, because I asked you, what's the most important thing you've learned about love in your life? And you answered, you can only love others when you've learned to love yourself. Now, this time I changed the question, and I've got something very different for you.
Okay.
And since we both quantum jumped since the last time we connected,
Yeah.
if you could either travel back in time 200 years or 200 years forward, which one would you choose and why?
Oh, I would do forward. I would do forward because I'm a tech guy. I love technology. I love advancement. I love innovation. The more available, the more like AI I find so fascinating and I love right now, because I'm able to create more and in a more innovative way and kind of a cool, having more options, more abilities. I love that. I absolutely love that. Right now I'm creating an AI app that helps people journal. It helps people resolve their beliefs. It teaches, it's insane. Some of the things that I'm doing, it will help couples have healthier conversations. All of this stuff is available to me because I live in the time now. And 200 years ago, I don't think I would find the things as fascinating as I do here, which is why I've chosen to incarnate at this time as well. But for me, I'm very tech guy. I'm a geek, and I'm like very much like, come on. Yeah. So I would definitely be 200 years in the future.
Amazing. Arian, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe and share this episode with someone who can benefit from it. Have a beautiful day, bliss and bless.